d.morris, and this is my presentation on research with human subjects. First, we need to talk about the Institutional Review Board. Institutional Review Board, or IRB, is an administrative body established to protect the rights and welfare of human research subjects in research activities conducted under the auspices of an institution which it's affiliated. For example, ours will be under the auspices of Aspen University. They'll decide if my research is appropriate. The IRB is charged with the responsibility of reviewing before the research begins all research. It doesn't matter if it's funded or unfunded research, if it involves human participants. The IRB is concerned with protecting the welfare, rights, and privacy of all human subjects. They have the authority to approve or disapprove or monitor, require modifications in any and all research that falls in its jurisdiction. The IRB has to have at least 5 members of varied backgrounds and experience. The people on the committee have to have legal, scientific, as well as social implications. They must include at least one person not affiliated with the university and at least one person that's not a scientist. IRB can have consultants who advise the board and are involved in protocol review. Now, we're looking at consent forms, which is the next part. It's the informed consent checklist. And this is, in 1998, the Office of Human Research Protections and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services released a checklist, as it were, of the things that need to be on informed consent forms. Those include a statement that the study involves research in the first place, the purpose of the research. What are you trying to prove? Why are you trying to do it? The duration of the subject's participation. How long do you expect the study to go on? And then involving the subjects, you come back later, of course, and study all your data. The description of any procedures that are going to be followed. You have to also, they're going to be looking at the identification of the procedures that you're using for your experiment, description of foreseeable risks or discomfort, of course, any benefits to the subject and to other people as well, and alternative procedures that are available for those that don't want to necessarily participate. There has to be confidentiality disclosures, where they're telling them how they're going to keep their information private. Contact information, if you had a question or a problem, who you would want to contact, how would you get in touch with them so that they can answer your questions. And the statement also needs to include something that says the participation is voluntary. Refusal to participate holds no penalty. And that is very important so that people know that they're not required to be part of that. Also, it needs to be in there that people can stop participating at any point. Now, there's some other things that may be in that consent form. They don't have to be, but these, a statement that a treatment or procedure may involve risks, which are unforeseeable. And so that needs to be in there. Anticipated circumstances in which the subject's participation may be terminated by the investigator without regard to the subject's consent. Costs that may result in participation in the research. Consequences of their decision to withdraw from the research, procedures for orderly termination of participation by the subject. So either they can be terminated by the people doing the research, or they can opt out themselves at any time. You also want to put in there the approximate number of people that are participating, so they know they're not the only ones that are going to be there. A statement that significant new findings developed in the course of research may relate to your willingness to continue participation will be provided to the subject also. So that's also very, very important in what's going on with the research as well. The IRB can waive the requirement of the signed form, which I did not know. I thought this was interesting for me. They can waive the requirement for the signed consent form if they find some of these things. If the only record linking the subject and the research would be the consent form, and the principal risk of that would be the potential harm resulting from a breach of confidentiality. Each subject will be asked whether the subject wants documentation linking the subject with the research and the subject's wishes will govern that. Or the research presents no more than minimal risk to harm the subjects and involves no procedures to which written consent is normally required outside of the research context. And see, that's what's going to be really important for mine as I'm researching student behaviors and implementing a overall district level behavior plan, because that will not require parental consent. We're going to do this regardless, and I'm going to study the data that comes with it. So I'll be requesting that we not have to get those signed consent forms, because it's not anything that would require it outside of the research. And in any case which the documentation is waived, the IRB may require the investigator to provide subjects with a written statement regarding the research. Now, if it's involving children, things change just a little bit. And I've got a couple of laws listed here for you, but it says that the IRB may find that the permission of one parent is sufficient for research to be conducted, and under those laws, they're 46.404 and 46.405. If the research is covered 46.406 or 407, permission is obtained from both parents, has to give that unless one is incompetent or dead, obviously. And then the last one here, if the IRB determines that a research protocol is designed for conditions or for a subject population for which parental or guardian permission is not a reasonable requirement to protect the subjects. Again, that goes back to what I said with the waiver before. The research that I'm doing is not going to require parental permission, because it's one that we're going to be doing regardless. Moving on, going to protocol and instrumentation. I found some interesting stuff on this. I actually went and found a template for a sample research protocol, and it included a lot of different things. So the things that in your written protocol you should have, obviously background and significance. That's the background information on condition or problem to be studied, which for me is going to be student behavior, of course. And then looking at other studies that look at the same thing, that would be the significance. We're going to also look at the objectives, including specific aims and hypothesis. You want to look at the broad long-term objectives, describe realistically what the research is intended to accomplish, and a hypothesis to be tested. For example, in mine, I'm concerned with student behaviors and improving discipline referrals and out of classroom placements based on improving student behavior. So I'm really interested in how that's going to work. You need to include how you're going to collect the data, what data you're going to collect, and how you're going to analyze that data. All of those are super important. The next thing we're going to look at will be data and safety monitoring plan, if you have to do that. How are we going to keep things confidential so other people don't have access to individual names and individual records? Ours are mandated by the state, so for what I'll be doing, all of those are already confidential. The study limitations, we're going to be limiting it to just a school day and that type of thing. So the limitations on the study, how long it'll take, what are we looking at, and just so that potential limitations and procedures will be looked at as well. I'm going to come back to a couple others here in just a second, but right now I want to move on to the plans for disseminating your findings. Once you've completed your study, how are you going to get the word out? Obviously, we'll submit our dissertation to the university, but how else are you planning on getting your findings out so people can see it? Then all your references and appendices. So I want to go back and touch on methodology for a second, because this is a big part of your protocol. You need to have all your definitions, what words are, what they mean, how you're going to be looking at them, prospective and retrospective. How are you going to be looking at what's going forward, what's going back? The study I'm going to be doing will be comparing data from multiple years. So we'll be looking at things as they happen and then things that occurred before we changed it. Period of enrollment, how long is it going to be that people will be in there? That needs to be in there. The instruments that you're going to use, standardized surveys, how are you going to be doing it? For me, it's going to be a collection of data, discipline data as generated by principals and generated by teachers. And then I'll be sorting through the data. Without looking at individual names, I will be looking at grade levels, and we'll break it down, see if it has more of an impact on male students or female students, but we won't be looking at individual names on that. And then an endpoint. When are you going to be done? What's the main thing you're looking for? What is the goal of what you're looking for? There's, of course, some demographic information. We need age, sex, race, all the demographic stuff. Inclusion and exclusion. Who's going to be participating and who's going to be excluded. The research I'll be doing will be including everybody in the school district, so there won't be an exclusion at all. We'll include special ed, GT, and everyone in between. Experimental group versus control group. Access to the study group. I have access as one of the district level administrators. I have access to all the students. Time for completed study, facilities for studying, and staff training. The staff training is the one that concerns me for mine, because for my research to be accurate, teachers and administrators have to, with fidelity, have to make sure they implement the processes I'm putting in place, and so we can get accurate data on what we're going for. Plans for recruitment doesn't really apply to what I'm doing, because everyone's going to participate. Number and length of each study visit. I'll be spending at least one day a week on each campus. Procedures, the instruments being used. Again, we're collecting data, and we'll be sorting through a whole bunch of data. There won't really be a survey I'm going to be doing, in charts, data collected, potential identity of subjects. We won't be doing it by individual subjects. Moving on, the next thing, ethical considerations have to be part of your protocol. Ethical considerations is a wide thing. First of all, informed consent. We talked about that before. Requesting a waiver, which again, I'm going to do that. We outline the risks, potential risk, assess severity and likelihood, procedures for protecting against or minimizing risk, alternative treatments and procedures, adverse events, provisions for intervention if we need intervention, reporting these adverse events, compensation for injuries. Now, with the research I'm doing, obviously none of those things are applicable. And then benefits to the subjects, we have to do that. You need to explain the expected benefits in relation to the subject. If there are none, then you still have to state that in your protocol. Any cost, if there are none, you still need to state it. Any compensation, again, if there's none, you need to state it. Privacy and confidentiality and the limits on that. What I'll be doing is 100% confidential. It's covered that way under FERPA, the Family Education Right Privacy Act. So anything I do, much like HIPAA in the medical community, absolutely has to be kept confidential. And then the plans for record retention. Now, what I will be doing as far as record retention will be done with no student names attached. So you can see there what I have for you are the references that I've gone from the hhs.gov, which was their informed consent checklist, and then required elements of the consent form, sample research protocol template, and then what is the IRB. Thank you very, very much.